Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we hunt for those fascinating insights in markets, maybe technologies you might not realize are, really shaping our world. And today, we're taking a closer look at something that, well, it sounds super specialized, but believe me, its impact is anything but niche. We're talking about the Ion Selective Electrode market, or IS market. Before we jump into the big numbers, though, maybe we should quickly clarify what an ion selective electrode actually is. I mean, for those of us not in a lab coat every day, what are we really talking about here?
Right. Well, think of it like a tiny, highly specialized chemical sensor, almost like an electronic sort of tongue or nose, maybe. And its job is to detect and measure the concentration of one specific type of charged particle that's an ion in some kind of solution.
Okay, specific, so not just anything floating around.
Exactly. It's selective. That's the key word. So, for instance, you could use one to precisely measure, say, calcium in milk, or maybe fluoride in your drinking water, or even something like potassium levels in a blood sample. That selectivity is really its superpower. It gives you incredibly accurate measurements, even if lots of other chemicals are present. They're really fundamental tools in, well, all sorts of fields: environmental monitoring, medical diagnostics, industrial process control, you name it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, a selective sensor. Got it. So with that picture, let's zoom out. Let's look at the global stage for these ICs. According to Cognitive Market Research, this really vital market was valued at, what, just over $1.1 billion back in 2021.
Yep, 11,137.95 million to be precise.
Right, and it's definitely not slowing down. It seems it already climbed to nearly $1.5 billion, $1,452.1 million by this year, 2025. And the projection, it looks like it's set to hit a pretty substantial $2.36 billion by 2033.
That's $2,364.5 million.
Okay, so let's unpack this. That translates to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of around 6.3%, 6.284% to be exact. That feels like more than just steady growth. It feels like a clear signal, doesn't it? Foundational tech embedding itself deeper.
It really is. And what's compelling, I think, is that such consistent, quite robust growth in what might seem like a niche area, well, it often points to really widespread and increasing demand for precision. It tells us that industries pretty much across the board are prioritizing accurate, often real-time chemical measurement more than they used to. And this isn't just, lab research curiosity. It's about very practical applications, things that directly influence public health, environmental safety, product quality.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, with that global pulse check, let's start our regional journey. Let's explore where this growth is actually happening. We can highlight some specific drivers, maybe some standout performers. Let's kick things off in North America. Seems like a region providing a really solid foundation for this market.
A very established market, yes.
So North America's IAS market, the numbers show it was valued at over $340 million in 2021. That's $341.955 million. And it's forecasted to nearly double, reaching around $665.607 million by 2033. That shows a steady CAGR of about 5.7%. 5.708, actually.
It's still very respectable growth for a mature region.
Definitely. Now, digging into that region, the United States, maybe unsurprisingly, accounts for the biggest slice, right?
Yeah.
Projected to hit over $500 million, $525.364 million by 2033.
Right.
But here's where it gets, well, maybe a little more interesting. Canada actually shows a slightly higher growth rate, around 6.35% annually, heading towards $87.261 million. So even within what looks like a mature, fairly uniform region, we see these different paces. What do you make of those subtle differences, say, between the U.S. and Canada there?
Yeah, that's a great observation. And if we try to connect this to the bigger picture, North America definitely shows a mature market, but one that's maintaining, robust, consistent expansion. Those slight variations in growth rates, like Canada ticking up a bit faster than the U.S., well, it could reflect subtle differences in industrial focus, maybe regulatory environments.
Okay. Like what specifically?
Well, for instance, Canada has a pretty significant resource extraction sector, right?
Yeah.
Mining, oil, and gas. And these often come with quite stringent environmental monitoring requirements, especially for water quality. That naturally drives a high demand for precise IE applications. The U.S., of course, has broader industrial applications, but maybe a more established, diverse set of demands that are growing just a tad slower overall. It really boils down to how these technologies integrate into each country's specific economic fabric,
That does make a lot of sense, yeah, especially thinking about those specific Canadian industries. Okay, so we've looked at the steady foundations in North America. Let's cross the Atlantic now over to Europe. And here, it seems we find maybe a more varied picture, a bit of a mosaic of growth with some interesting standouts and, well, nuanced differences.
Definitely more variation across the continent,
So
yes.
the European IC market, it was valued around $300 million back in 2021, $300.42 million, and it's projected to grow to almost $600 million, $595.854 million by 2033. That's expanding at a CAGR just under 6%, 5.921%.
It's solid.
Within Europe, though, Germany really catches the eye. It's leading the continent with the highest CAGR, over 6.6%, 6.608%, projected to reach almost $130 million by 2033, $129.896 million. And you've also got the UK and Spain showing strong, pretty consistent growth, too. 6.237% for the UK, 6.239% for Spain. Very close. But then, in quite stark contrast, Russia's growth rate is notably lower. Looks like about 4.5%, 4.535%. That's the lowest in Europe, according to this data. What really stands out to you about these quite varied growth rates across the continent?
Well, it definitely raises an important question, doesn't it? How do different national priorities, industrial landscapes, maybe even geopolitical factors kind of play into the adoption and investment in ICE tech? Germany's strong growth, for example, isn't terribly surprising if you think about it. They're global leaders in high-precision manufacturing. They have a very advanced chemical industry.
Right. And strong environmental regulation.
Exactly, particularly around water and wastewater treatment. And ICs are absolutely crucial there for real-time monitoring of things like nitrates or ammonia, pollutants. On the flip side, a lower growth rate, like we see in Russia, well, that could reflect maybe different stages of industrial modernization, perhaps less immediate regulatory pressure for these specific measurement tools, or maybe just a greater focus on other kinds of instrumentation for now. The data really does highlight how fragmented the market drivers can be, even within, a single continent like Europe.
It certainly does. And those industry examples like German manufacturing and water treatment, they really bring it to life.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's shift our focus pretty dramatically. Let's head over to Asia Pacific because, wow, this region is truly proving to be the undisputed global growth engine for the IC market right now.
Oh, absolutely. The numbers there are quite something.
They really are. It's a picture of rapid acceleration. So Asia Pacific, it held just over $324 million, $324.313 million in 2021. It then surged past $426.191 million by 2025 and is expected to hit a massive $737 million, $737.725 million by 2033.
That boasts the highest regional KGR globally, doesn't it? Just over 7%.
Yes.
7.099%.
That's a significant acceleration, yeah.
It-
And within that, China is naturally a regional powerhouse. Forecast to reach over $230 million, $230.539 million by 2033, with its own strong CAGR of nearly 7.3%, 7.294%. But here's maybe an even more eye-opening detail. India. India actually presents the highest individual country CAGR globally, a staggering 7.97%. Nearly 8%.
Incredible growth.
Projected to hit over $112 million, $112.134 million by 2033. And we're also seeing really strong growth coming out of Southeast Asia as a block, 7.765% CAGR, and specifically Singapore, 7.496% CAGR. So what's driving this phenomenal acceleration, especially in a country like India with that near 8% growth?
Well, what's fascinating here, I think, is how the really robust economic development and the rapidly expanding industrial bases in countries like India and China, they aren't just contributing, they're genuinely spearheading the overall global expansion of this market.
You're heading, yeah.
India's staggering growth, for instance, is likely fueled by, massive government investments in new infrastructure. Think about wastewater treatment plants for these rapidly urbanizing populations.
Yeah.
There's also a burgeoning pharmaceutical and biotech industry there, which, as you can imagine, relies very heavily on precise pH and ion measurements for quality control, for research. China, similarly huge investments, advanced manufacturing, environmental protection initiatives, medical diagnostics, all happening at an unprecedented scale. So this rapid adoption, it isn't just about, catching up. It's really about a massive scale up of applications. Everything from basic water quality testing right through to advanced process control in these emerging high-tech sectors.
That's a really crucial point, the sheer scale of investment and modernization happening there. It's not just incremental change.
Not at all.
And it's interesting because it's not just the big established players or the rapidly growing giants like China and India. We also need to acknowledge the The significant expansion happening in what we might group together as
Yeah.
other emerging markets, South America, the Middle East, and Africa.
Right. Even if the absolute market values are smaller currently, the growth rates are definitely notable.
Exactly. They're indicative of really widespread adoption, aren't they?
Yeah.
So South America, for instance, it's experiencing an overall CAGR of about 6.6%, 6.624%. That takes its market to over $130 million, $132.932 million by 2033. And within that, Argentina actually stands out with a strong CAGR, over 7%, 7.159%, though Brazil still holds the leading market share.
Interesting dynamic there.
Now, moving to the Middle East, we're looking at about a 6.5% CAGR, 6.469%, with the market projected to reach over $123 million, $123.356 million by 2033. And the UAE shows particularly notable growth there, doesn't it? Over 7%, again, 7.136%. Turkey is also strong at 6.82%.
Right. Lots of development happening there.
And finally, Africa. It presents a nearly 6% CEGR, 5.97%, forecast to reach over $109 million, $109.027 million by 2033. And within Africa, South Africa seems to be leading the region with a 6.61% CEGR.
Huh.
So when you look at these quite diverse emerging economies, South America, Middle East, Africa, what are the common threads or maybe specific drivers you see for IC adoption across such different places?
Well, if we try to connect this to the bigger picture again, I think it really suggests increasing sophistication across multiple sectors, right?
Yeah.
Industrial, environmental, perhaps even medical applications in these developing markets. As these economies grow and modernize, they're not just expanding overall, they're specifically adopting more advanced technologies for precision measurement.
In what areas specifically?
Could be things like agricultural analysis, trying to ensure food security. Or it could be in wastewater treatment, again, improving public health standards. That's a big one globally. In the Middle East, maybe it's more tied to that rapid urbanization and these huge, large-scale infrastructure projects that require really precise material analysis. And then in South America and Africa, maybe it's driven more by resource extraction industries needing accurate environmental monitoring, or perhaps expanding basic healthcare services that need reliable diagnostic tools. It's just a really clear sign, I think, that the need for accurate, often real-time chemical data is pretty much a universal driver now. It seems essential for both development and sustainability, regardless of the region.
It's truly fascinating, isn't it? How this one type of technology finds relevance, well, pretty much everywhere. Okay, so let's try and bring this all together now. We've journeyed from the initial explanation of what an ion selective electrode actually is.
Selective sensor, yeah.
Exactly, through the global forecasts, and then we dove down into some very specific regional performances. And what emerges is, I think, a really clear picture of consistent, quite robust expansion.
Definitely a strong upward trend.
This global ion selective electrode market, which, remember, was just over $1 billion, 1.1 billion in 2021, is confidently projected to reach that impressive $2.36 billion mark by 2033. So just to summarize our key findings for everyone listening, we've got this steady global growth overall. It's really being powered significantly by that incredible leadership from Asia-Pacific, with India, China, and Southeast Asia truly setting a blistering pace.
Right, the growth engine.
Meanwhile, you've got the established markets like North America and Europe still providing really solid contributions, maintaining significant shares, growing steadily. And then let's not forget that significant emerging expansion we're seeing in regions like South America, the Middle East, and Africa. It just proves the widespread utility, the growing necessity, really, of this technology across all sorts of diverse and developing economies.
And, this really raises an important question, I think, about the fundamental needs that these ion selective electrodes are meeting globally. Their widespread adoption, that consistent growth that we've seen, it transcends traditional market boundaries. It's expanding into new applications everywhere. It really speaks to a kind of universal demand, doesn't it, for accurate, often on-site, and increasingly real-time chemical measurement.
A universal demand.
Yeah. It highlights a foundational requirement really for modern industries, for modern societies, that IS technology is just uniquely positioned to fulfill, whether that's ensuring cleaner water, safer food, or more precise medical diagnostics.
So what does this all mean for you listening in? Well, you've just received a pretty comprehensive data-driven shortcut to being well-informed about a pivotal market. One that often flies under the radar, but clearly impacts so many areas of scientific and industrial progress, from the air we might breathe to the water we drink, the food we eat, the products we use every single day.
Yeah. And maybe here's a final thought to consider. With such consistent, widespread growth in a technology that's fundamentally designed for precise measurement, what does that tell us? What does it tell us about the increasing global demand for accuracy, for data, in literally everything, from environmental monitoring to industrial quality control? And maybe more importantly, how might that relentless pursuit of precision shape the world around us in the next decade? What new challenges, but also what new solutions will arise from it?
That is a powerful thought to leave you with. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep observing the world through an informed lens. That's all for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.